Right now, though, young offenders will soon face tougher penalties in Queensland after the government passed controversial laws. Today, Queensland reporter Andrea Crothers has more from State Parliament. Andrea, this has been a point of contention for months.
Yeah, the real trigger point, though, Carl, was 3 months ago when we saw Brisbane mother Emma Lovell violently murdered. That caused this crime crackdown, and now those laws, they've passed Parliament. So what are these changes? Well, young offenders caught stealing cars, they'll now have increased maximum penalties from 7 to 10 years. If it's done with violence or at night, that's up to 14 years. Though there is a slight restriction there, which means young offenders are likely only to have half of that maximum penalty. Also, those caught boasting about their offences on social media, they'll have harsher penalties too. Courts will now be required to look at bail as well as criminal history when it comes to dealing with juveniles. And also a breach of bail offence, that will come back. So these laws, they passed last night. Every MP backed them, bar the Greens. They say they're a disgrace because it came at the cost of overriding the Human Rights Act. And the LNP, despite supporting it, they believe it'll have little to no impact. So, Carl, the next question is, just how effective will these new laws be? How many more juveniles will we see behind bars? And is the system ready to cope?
Andrea, thank you. Well, the Queensland government has passed controversial youth crime laws, including tighter bail restrictions and harsher punishments for offenders who post their crimes on social media.
Joining us from Rockhampton is a victim of youth crime, Ben Clark. Ben, thanks so much for your time. Before we start, can you just remind us of what you went through?
Just stabbed in the chest by a youth on Christmas night while taking the rubbish out. Young fella returned to the property, and unbeknown to us, he had a knife. We had no idea. I was more concerned for him than anything else, because he was obviously, you can see there on the footage, pretty elevated. And before I knew it, I was on the ground.
Ben, we spoke to you a couple of weeks ago on this, and we wanted to get you back because these laws. I watched yesterday in Parliament. It was heated in Parliament. And I watched the reaction from victims and victims groups. What are your initial thoughts on the new bill?
It's a step in the right direction. Obviously, something's better than nothing. However, when the human rights advocates out there talking what they're talking, as far as, we're going to end up with more youths in detention, well, yeah, you probably will.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens when you get a little tap. That you do something wrong, there's the line, you stepped over it. And now, I'm not saying that the kids need help. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But you need to know where your boundaries are, don't you? It's what you're taught as a kid, or what used to be taught as a child. You know where the boundaries are, and that's all they're looking for, really. If you wanted to be soft approached.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance, isn't it, to get right, especially when we're talking about youth crime and wanting to prevent that. But I guess at the end of the day, it's all about preventing what happened to you from happening to someone else. Yeah,
it is. And how you do that, I mean, that's a hard question, because this is something that has been, like I said before, has been normalised. And that's back to what they're watching, what they're reading, listening to. The laws that are okaying it. We've got first responders and police out there mopping up and scraping up off the roads. And then you got CIB putting something together out there to present to the DPP for them to prosecute, for them to have the magistrates watch them walk straight back out the door. And the first responders disheartened. That's why they can't get anyone to join. You can't get anyone to join the police, because who's going to go out there and continually scrape people up off the road, and they know they're going to have to do it again.
I can't imagine how difficult. I mean, it's hard enough being a cop, let alone what they're going through now. I wanted to ask you this. I've got great friends in Brisbane, and they're law-abiding citizens. They do their bit, they pay their taxes, and some of them are afraid at night now. And you've got to crack down initially, and you've got to send a message initially. The other stuff has to come as well, but first of all, let's stop it, right?
You know where we are, Carl. You know where we are up here. We love our town.
Yeah.
And you see Brisbane all the way down there. You know, the road gets pretty narrow from Bundaberg South, mate. And it seems like, but it's creeping in up here.
Yeah.
And we had an instance last night, yesterday or the day before in Rockhampton, where a 70-year-old couple was robbed of their car and bashed in their own home. You know, when we've got our elderly that they've fought wars, gone through depressions. Yeah. What was the narrative that we've heard for so long now?
Yeah.
Last 2 to 3 years from our Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk, keeping Queenslanders safe. How many times did I hear that? I'll tell you how many times, over 1,000 times in 1 year. There's only 365 days in the year. Keeping Queenslanders safe. The only people that are keeping Queenslanders safe will be Queenslanders soon. Unfortunately, that's just where it sort of ends up going, isn't it?
Of course. Mate, you're fed up, mate. I can feel it. You've been through a lot, and you've articulated in the most perfect way what it feels like to be a victim and to feel that frustration, that exasperation.
You know what? I can't stand that word, Carl.
Yeah.
I'm not a victim. You know, my kids were part of it. Look at these elder people. Our little community, mate. People don't feel safe.
I know, mate.
I thought you were keeping Queenslanders safe. The only people that are safe is Anastasia and up in that ivory tower.
All right, mate. Hey, Benny, stay strong, my man. You getting out the front of this is really important as well. So give my love to your family.
No worries, Carl. Hey, Carl, who's winning the Family Feud, mate?
What? Which Family Feud?
The Family Feud.
I don't want to go in the answer to that.
Sons. 2 brothers going head-to-head every breakfast. He's avoided it for a long time.
Ben with the tough questions this morning, Carl.
I thought that was going into a very dark place.
We all wanted to duck for cover there. It was like,
No, you didn't. You were encouraging it.
Keep it going, Ben.
All right.
Look at the professionalism moving along.
Get on your bike, Benny.
Nothing to see here.
Get on your bike.
Might put you out of a job there, mate. Are you okay? Are you all right?
No, I had a little bit of a palpitation.
That's the mark of a good question. Hey there, Today fans. Sarah and...
What's my name again?
Oh, my God. Carl.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel, though. Subscribe now for more news, special reports and amazing Aussie stories.
And Carl misbehaving,
Whoa,
of course.
that never happens.
Always happens.
What's she talking about?
Always happens.